Claude Code just shipped a few changes that can change both the quality of your life and the quality of your code, especially if you're tired of being the human bridge between the browser console log and your terminal. You know the drill. Make a change, fire up the browser, test it, copy the error, back to Claude Code, ask it to fix it, lather, rinse, repeat. Well, with the announcement that Claude in Chrome is now available to all paid Claude subscriptions, you get to take yourself out of that loop. Today, I'm going to show you how to use the new browser extension, as well as two other seemingly small updates that I think can give you oversized value. All right, first things first, let's get everything set up. Today, I am looking at changes that occurred up to 2.0.72. So you want to make sure you have at least that version of Claude. So if you haven't done it in a while, run Claude update and make sure you're up to date. In between the setup for this filming and the actual filming, they've already gone to 73. So I guess we're getting a couple of new changes. All right, so I'm going to start with one of the smallest ones first, but this I think makes the biggest impact. You can now add current usage field to your status line input so you can keep track of your context window. Why might you care about your context window? There have been studies that show as the context window gets larger and larger, the error rate for the AI model goes up and hallucinations begin to occur more and more frequently. It's called context rot, and it's a real problem. There's an article that I'll link in the description below, but basically, every time you add a new piece of context, the model has to go back and check everything else that's been said in that conversation, in that session. And so the amount of things that it's keeping track of becomes overwhelming, and the performance begins to degrade in a kind of alarming manner. And we're not talking about just when you're getting to that like 98% full. We're talking like about halfway, you already start to see some degradation. Now, obviously, all of the companies are working on making this better and better, but if you can keep track of when your context window is filling up and then either clear the context or compact it at least, you're actually going to get better code coming out of it. If you've ever had that experience where you've been maybe working on something for a while and you feel like it's just kind of not understanding what you're asking for, and the more you try to fix it, the worse the fixes get, this might be part of what's going on. So if you don't already know, you can change what shows up in your status line. You can add the model that you're using. You can add the directory that you're in. That's what I've got here. In order to change it, you just use the /status line command and whatever you want to add in there. The other thing that you can do is you can just tell it, hey, can you add the current usage to my status line? But make it look like a battery indicator. Now, I didn't come up with that. I watched a video and saw somebody else do that, and I just thought that was pretty cool. I'm gonna steal that, but I will link to his video below. All right, this is amazing. I think as my usage goes up, this battery indicator color will change. I kind of love that. All right, so now we have a way of keeping track of our context window, and if it gets full, we can type clear. That'll clear up the conversation and free up context. All right, so now that we've got a way to help keep Claude Code focused, we can move on to the next big feature, which actually allows you, the human, to actually stay a little bit less focused. Hey, I just wanted to pop in here real quick and say, if you like these kinds of hands-on, beginner-friendly videos, hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you're seeing, please consider hitting like as well. It really does help the channel. And that is the browser. The big announcement that happened today is that Claude in your browser is now available to all paid Claude subscriptions. So this means Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise. It's still in beta, but they've opened it up to everyone with a paid subscription. So you're going to come in here and add the extension to your Chrome browser. I've already installed it, but if I hadn't, there would be a button here that just says add to Chrome. So you want to make sure that that's installed, or else nothing's going to work. So in order to use the Chrome extension in Claude Code, you have to make sure you run it specifically in Chrome mode. So to do that, you need to run Claude with the -- Chrome option. If you don't do that, when you go in and run the /Chrome command, you'll see that Chrome is not enabled. You'll need to exit out, come back in, and fire up Claude with that option enabled. All right, so let's start off with, as usual, a proof of concept test. Can you open the browser and find the nearest Starbucks to the Oakland airport? Because, sometimes you just want to get out of that airport so fast you forget to stop and get coffee. Here we go. All right, so it's going to ask for permission. Unless you've set up an allow list, it's going to keep asking you for permission to go to various websites. And so I am actually going to say always allow actions on this site. All right, looks like we're done. All right, it's so nice. In typical Claude fashion, found several Starbucks. Also inside the airport terminals, there's a Pete's Coffee and an Oaklandish Coffee Collective. In case you don't want to wait till after you leave the airport, here's the nearest coffee. All right, so that works, but obviously this is not how we'd be using it. We want Claude to use the browser to run tests so it can keep working until the code is working the way it's supposed to. All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity and go ahead and clear that context because I don't really need directions to Starbucks cluttering up what we're about to do next. All right, so the app I'm playing with today is just a flower sketch pad. Nothing fancy, and in fact, it's so unfancy, there's not even an undo button. So let's go ahead and ask Claude, this app doesn't have an undo button. Can you add an undo button and then test it? All right, here it goes. All right, needs to fire up a server. All right, definitely. Great. Nice, it looks like it hit the undo button. I think that worked. And when it's done, it says the action is complete. The undo button is now disabled since there's no more history. Everything works. Okay, not bad, but it looks to me like the buttons are now kind of falling off the edge of the screen. Wonder if it can see that. Nice. And so if I had a design guide in my documentation, it could go ahead and check to make sure the buttons were lined up the way they were supposed to without me even needing to intervene. The more robust your documentation is, the more Claude can do on its own. And that's really the goal. All right, so the last little thing that I want to talk about is something that actually was updated a little while ago. And you may have noticed it either in your own code or while I'm working here. Claude has started suggesting the next thing that you might want to do. So for example, doing all this code, it's kind of saying, hey, do you want to commit these changes? If you like it, you can just hit enter. Obviously, it's just a free-form text area, so you can just start typing if you have something else in mind. Now, I happen to think this is a great addition. In my experience, it's been suggesting things that are either the logical next step or even sometimes just good suggestions. I was in here playing with this app earlier, and one of the things it suggested was, do you want to add an undo button? It noticed that was missing and just thought, hey, since you're in here working on this app, here's something you might be interested in. So I actually love that it does this. It's that ease of use that Claude is really, really good at. But I know not everybody feels the same way. Some people are apparently driven just a little bit crazy by these suggestions. So you can turn them off. You can go into config and say show tips. No, I want that off. Me, I like it on. All right, and here now you can see I'm up to 37% in my context window already, which is a little crazy. To me, this is just a very lightweight app. I feel like we just added a button. That's not that big of a deal. But I can see now if my next step is something else pretty simple, like a redo button, I'll go ahead and have it do that. But if I'm about to jump into a major modification, I actually might want to go ahead and clear my context now before I get started. In fact, that's something I've heard recently is clear your context as often as you can. You will just get so much better results. And this little status bar honestly does show me why that's true and why I probably should have been doing it much more frequently than I have been, which frankly is never. All right, so this is a big update to me. I had been kind of walking away from Claude Code recently in favor of Google's anti-gravity IDE of all things. Their Gemini model is still a little bit buggy, But their IDE was so good because it had a built-in browser. So I could just go start an app and everything would be right there waiting for me. But with Claude Code adding browser integration fully into Claude Code, I mean, it's no contest. Claude Code is such a superior coding model, but also the user experience. Claude Code is really known for making it easier and easier for people to just go in and start building something, even if they don't have the technical background of a full engineer. They're adding all of these quality of life features that just make it so nice to use. It really is a pleasure to go in there and constantly see these new little things that maybe don't feel like much, but they just add so much to the overall experience. They make the usage better and they make the output better. These are only 3 of the dozens and dozens of features that Claude Code has added recently. But to me, even the smallest ones make the biggest impact. But as far as I'm concerned, the browser extension, that just completes a circuit that to me was just missing before. So I'm really happy to see the updates that Claude has been doing recently. They just keep their head down, they're going forward and making their product better and better every day. And it really shows. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.